Welcome to the ONSIDE Podcast, a podcast on innovation-driven entrepreneurship. Join us on this journey as we amplify the power of disruptive ideas. Welcome, everybody, to the ONSIDE Podcast, or I should say, welcome back. The ONSIDE Podcast is a podcast that's focused on inclusive, innovation-driven entrepreneurship here in Canada. This season, we're going to take a deep dive into women's entrepreneurship in Canada, highlighting women entrepreneurs and leaders who are working to make our startup ecosystem inclusive and driving change. These conversations and chats are being brought to you as part of our project, the Start Now Incubator project, which supports diverse and intersectional women to start and grow their businesses right here in Canada. And we've got some great partners and funding from the Women's Entrepreneurship Strategy to help us this. I'm your host, Alex McCann, and I think that this is our second episode of this season, so thank you so much for joining us. I am so happy and excited to be speaking with Sheena Russell, the CEO and founder of Made with Local. Sheena is born and raised in Prince Edward Island and is the founder of Made with Local, a Maritimes-based snack food company that creates simple, nourishing foods that are real and organic. Made with Local was started at a Halifax farmers market in 2012, which I actually remember, and now their real food bars can be found at over 3,000 grocery stores across Canada and the US. Sheena, thank you so much for joining us today.
Oh my gosh, Alex, thank you so much for having me. This is so fun.
As we dive into our conversation, and I really want to kind of get people understanding what the significance is of Made with Local, which is such a wonderful company that you've created. But before we do that, maybe we can set things up and let people kind of know a little bit about you and your background. I mentioned you're from Prince Edward Island, which is a beautiful place. Tell us a little bit about where you're from and, how you grew up and how you ended up in Halifax.
Yeah, thanks, Alex. So thank you for asking, because honestly, I really do feel like my journey into Made with Local really did start as a kid. I grew up in a part of a big family. My mom is one of 13 kids in PEI in a rural farming community. And so I grew up just spending tons of time on the family farm, and from a very early age was very annoyingly obsessed with saving the planet. I'll use my air quotes here at the time, because me as a little kid in the early 90s, that's all I knew that what I wanted to do. But really focused on sustainability from a very young age, to the point where I, bug my classmates about littering on the schoolyard and all that kind of stuff. So the little eco justice warrior right away. So grew up on the island, and then did 1 year of university at UPEI, and decided I wanted to, fly the coop a bit, get off island and experience something different. So I got accepted into DAL's environmental science program.
Oh, interesting.
And went to DAL. Did a degree in environmental science. Probably took a little longer than it should have. But, I balanced my social life and my studies. Sometimes better than others. But graduated with a degree in ecology. And from there, had a path forward where I was thinking that I was going to end up, working probably in the public service. I did get a job right away with the city of Halifax in their waste resource department. So working in recycling and composting. I was an educator. Yeah. So I have a very, if you guys ever want to talk about recycling and composting, I'm your girl.
I love that stuff. So okay. I will.
So I actually did that right out of university for several years, and met my husband here, and he was the one who, lured me over to Dartmouth to put down roots where he's from. So that really was, the earliest days of Made with Local, was getting settled in Dartmouth, having access to the beautiful Alderney Farmers Market that was just a couple blocks from our house every Saturday, and thinking, I could start a little business there. I could show up with a little table and bring some snacks, and just really started in a really kind of innocent way.
Okay. Well, I never saw your snack bars at the Alderney market, but I definitely saw them at the Halifax one, because I remember they were this is a long time ago. So I remember when they were in cellophane bags, and you had a little table, and I have kids, so I grabbed a few, and I remember seeing them when they started to pop up at the grocery stores and other places, once you kind of got out of the farmers market. So
yeah, I forget this person's name, but the founder of LinkedIn, he has a very famous quote that says, if the first version of your product doesn't embarrass you, you didn't start early enough. And I feel that with my company big time. I look back on those like Facebook memories and stuff now. I'm like, oh, that was rough. But you know what? We got started. So
I think I remember hearing you say once that when you were kind of moving into creating more of your products and kind of advancing with stuff, that you used to, before that you'd go around and pull granola bars off the shelves or things like that.
yeah.
Is that true? Just to make, because you were just because they were so fresh, everything was like completely new.
Yeah. Yeah. Oh yeah. There was definitely lots of shenanigans that happened in the early days of starting a business, and you just have to be so scrappy. You have
Yeah.
to be so scrappy. And if things go sideways, you got to fix it yourself. And yeah, there's all kinds of those stories in the earlier days. And honestly, still
Yeah.
in this
Yeah.
business. Yeah.
Oh, that's amazing. Well, tell us a little bit about kind of the origin of Made with Local. So you said you started off in the farmers market in Alderney Landing, and then also Halifax. But what kind of made you excited about kind of creating a company and deciding, I guess, maybe taking it from the farmers market to saying, okay, maybe I could actually turn this into like a real growing sustainable business? Like what actually motivated you to do that?
Yeah. So the earliest little brain waves of Made with Local started with my friend Kathy and I. She's the original co-founder in the company. We were gym buddies actually at a gym that friend of ONSIDE, Larissa Manning, owned at the time. So we were going to
Oh.
Larissa's gym, working out together, had lots of spare time on our hands because this is like pre-children, and so this is like around 2011. And so Kathy and I worked at the city together and would, just hang out lots and spitball on fun, creative ideas together. Things that are a side hustle that are going to light you up a little bit more than
Mm-hmm.
sometimes a kind of a boring government job, if I may say
Mm-hmm.
that.
Mm-hmm.
So we just like had it. Honestly, it's just like an email trail that I went back on a few years later to look and see. And this business really did start with just a little idea around, wouldn't it be cool if
Mm-hmm.
we started making snacks that tasted way better than anything
Mm-hmm.
else that was on the market at the time, and still, if I,
Mm-hmm.
I'll say
Mm-hmm.
that
Yep.
still.
Yep.
Um, because at the time, bars were either Cliff Bars that are just okay, obviously, but at the time they were pretty new to Canada and they were also quite expensive at the time. And like, those old school protein bars that taste like,
Mud.
sawdust. So there was a lot of opportunity in the market to create something that was actually delicious and actually good for you. And we had this idea to really hone in on a bit of a niche, and the story being collecting all these ingredients from local farmers and food producers, making them into these delicious snacks, and then bringing them back to that same market where we source these ingredients and being able to, in real time, tell the stories of the farmers and food producers who are growing these beautiful foods and then sell the products, right? So it's like this really cool, like full circle sort of
Mm-hmm.
idea. And, it's now, having been in this business for a long time, I realized that at the time, what we didn't know we were doing at that time was sussing out like true product market fit, right? I didn't recognize it as that, but I knew that we needed to make sure that there was a really good alignment between
Mm-hmm.
who our customers were going to be at the time and what we were making. And clearly people who are shopping at the farmers market already really care about sustainability and about knowing the farmer and traceability in their food and having that connection to what they're putting in their bodies. So it was really like the perfect petri dish to test out this concept. And, we did 2 years, because Kathy and I were both in the business for those 2 years. We would alternate weekends at different markets. So
Mm-hmm.
her husband and her would work at one and vice versa. We would be over in Dartmouth. Like it was a very all-in time.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Like hands on. We're going in.
All the things. We were making the bars ourselves. We were packaging them ourselves. We were bringing them to the market, doing all the marketing and accounting and sourcing and the whole thing. And plus working full-time jobs.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. You forgot to mention that part.
Yeah, we were still very much working our full-time government jobs
Okay.
for those 2 years.
Okay. Okay. So
Yeah.
like you're like doing double duty. And then if you've got kids or things, you're like triple duty, just doing all of the things.
Yeah.
Oh, wow.
Because let's be clear, if you're selling snacks at a farmer's market, that is not a full-time employment opportunity
Yeah.
for most people.
Yeah.
It's an amazing place to test your concept. Like I really do think that the
Mhm.
farmer's market is the most amazing food and beverage incubator that exists. Our friends at Cove Kombucha are another Cove Drinks now. They're another incredible example of a local company that actually started at the Seaport Market, and now they're huge. They're crushing it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, I guess it's a perfect place to get customer feedback in real time. People walking by, having a nibble, you can see if they resonated with the flavor or the texture or
100%. I talk about that all the time. And again, like, pardon the pun, but like the market research that you can do at the market, at the farmer's market for us was actually invaluable. Like, to be able to refine the flavor and texture and pricing and different variety pack, like, you name it. We were just iterating constantly and just gathering all of that feedback, all that data from these conversations every weekend and pouring that into making the product as ready as it could be to go to retail.
Well, that's so fascinating. So you have this journey where you're kind of testing and iterating and getting customer feedback. We're using all the like startup language, but at the time you're just kind of feeling your way through it, just making snacks and trying to mix things in bowls, and hopefully people like it. And they did, obviously. You're kind of doing this for 2 years. At what point did you decide to kind of grow? Like, because now you're selling in 3,000 stores and this kind of thing. At that time, I don't even know if you were selling at stores or if it was just the farmer's market or you're starting. How did you kind of get the wherewithal, I guess, to kind of start edging out from the farmer's market? Was there something that was going on that made you say, you know what, I think we could actually make this bigger than what we're doing right now?
Yeah. So I got pregnant. That was pretty much the thing that I had to make a decision about. I got knocked up. So my husband and I, or my partner and I at the time, we got pregnant with our first daughter. And it was this sort of real moment about, okay, what are we going to do here in terms of this, full-time comfy job plus this business that I absolutely know we knew. He's, an early supporter of this company, of course, but we knew there was something really special going on here. And then we've got our first baby on the way. So that really did kind of like push the decision to figure out whether Made with Local was going to be something that was going to be grown, through this journey, or whether I was going to let it go. And the decision was, for me to take my maternity leave, have, my little one kind of side by side with me through that year to see where I could get the business from while technically off on maternity leave for that year. So it would be August 2014 to August 2015. I had 1 year to see if we were going to be able to make a go of this. So that whole year,
while you're raising a baby for the first time.
Oh, it's fine.
No, you have no problems.
So we were able to line ourselves up with a really amazing manufacturing partner, an organization down in the Annapolis Valley called the Flower Cart Group that employs adults with barriers to the mainstream workforce. So all of a sudden, that part of the business operationally, actually making the product, was taken care of by these amazing partners that we, made bars with and were very close to still. But for 8 years, they made every Made with Local bar that you could buy in Atlantic Canada. So they were able to take over that side of the business. And my focus was just on essentially sales. Let's figure out if there's enough, demand out there for us to be able to make a real go of this and kind of get to a launch point. So I have like so many pictures and videos of me like schlepping around with my baby in the bucket seat and like backing my Hyundai Elantra up to like the big, huge warehouse doors of a Sobeys to like give them a few boxes. And the guys working at the warehouse be like, "Is that a baby?" I'm like, "Yeah, it is."
Yes.
So that, again, my hand was forced. I guess we were forced to make a decision. But honestly, it's a really great question, because I think if you aren't forced to make a decision in a business about when to go all in, it's really hard, right? It's really hard. If something else isn't pushing you to make that choice, it's really hard to know when and if you can go all in. So I'm like I'm obviously very grateful for my kid for a million reasons, but the timing of it all is like a very kind of, unique to us kind of story.
Yeah. Well, that's, I just can imagine you with the baby, at the warehouse or other places. Yeah. And, I love that story. It's like, I'm not going to be held back here. I'm going to just kind of embrace it. We had an event a couple weeks ago, and a woman showed up with her baby in a little tuxedo or a little suit. He was so cute. And it was a giant networking event, had like 150 people. And I was just so impressed. She just showed up. She's like, "Nope, I'm coming." And that's just how I'm going to do it.
Yeah. You just take them with you.
Yeah.
Yep.
Was there a point at which you thought, oh, maybe I should turn back? This is too hard. And then did you have to like rethink again? Like, no, I'm going to keep going. Like the reason why I ask this is that being an entrepreneur is a journey, like in your business, but also emotionally, kind of ebbs and flows and ups and downs and things like that. And there's like a stage where you have this euphoria where you're like, we're just the adrenaline. We're just like pushing through it. And then, you push through and then you kind of, I don't want to say hit a wall, but you hit like another moment.
Yeah.
Like, have you experienced that? Or?
Oh, 100 million times over. That's what they call it, the roller coaster, is because it just never stops. The hits just keep coming. Yeah, 100%. We've experienced all the feelings, and oftentimes in the run of one day, right? The highs are highs and the lows are low. And I will say, I've never had a moment where I'm just like, we're done here, like shut it down. But there have been lots of times, and I'm actually in like a little cycle of this, like even just this week in the next, and for the last few days have been, we're feeling this intensity of another big ramp up in the brand. And, that's, affecting sleep and affecting your mental health a little bit. And you're starting to feel the stress levels rise. And something that I've even been trying to like talk to my team about, and even my kids and I had this conversation last night, which is, sometimes when things get really hard, you want to quit, but what you really just need is a bit of rest. Sometimes you just need a bit of rest. Sometimes you just need to take a couple days, go walk in the sunshine, get a bit of extra sleep, and then like kind of come back to the table feeling refreshed. And that's something that is a lesson that I need to like continuously remind myself of. So there have definitely been times in the business where I won't say we slowed down, but things weren't accelerating as quickly, or we've had to, take some time to collect our thoughts and change paths or what have you. So yeah, I think that's natural and pretty normal in this crazy roller coaster ride we're on.
Yeah. I hear you. I get anxious and amped up about stuff. My team knows this because I'm like, we got to do all of these things. We have to do. It's an emergency. And you get very amped up, and I have to remind myself to take a deep breath. I like to walk in the woods, so
me too.
Like forest bathing or whatever. I just try to walk out in the woods and just even for 20 minutes totally changes your perspective, and you
100%.
can kind of like refocus what's most important, all that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
So yeah,
I honestly feel like I had that experience. So last week I was traveling and I visited Bowen Island in BC for the first time, which is just this beautiful island off the coast of Vancouver. And I just hugged trees for like 2 days straight. And it was like the most beautiful thing.
Okay.
It was like forest bathing on steroids.
Okay,
it was amazing.
I love it.
But I flew then from Vancouver directly into New York City and was in Manhattan. I was literally staying like 3 blocks from Times Square, and I think it broke my brain a little bit.
You're like, where are the trees? Give me the trees back.
I was like, the poop smells are different here. I like the smell of, animals in the forest, not animals in the urban jungle. So anyway, it was like, I think getting home from that trip, I was like, you know what? I'm feeling a little fried. I just need to like take a couple of days and take things a bit slower. So it's just, I think, being in tune with your own like energy levels. And that's a really important skill as an entrepreneur.
Okay. I love it. Well, I'm definitely going to try to heed that advice. This is the things logically, and those things you actually do. So, well, one thing, I know about your company and about you is how important values are to your business and to your brand. And you guys have been successful in becoming a B Corp, which is a fantastic accomplishment. For folks who are listening who might not be familiar with a B Corp, can you tell us like what that is and why that's important?
Yeah.
And then I want to ask you a little bit about how values are important, and why did you decide to go after being a B Corp?
Sure. Yeah. So the B Corp community is a organization of businesses globally. They can be product-based businesses, service businesses. Pretty much any business can choose to work towards becoming part of the B Corp community, and essentially it is a set of standards and practices that really set like the gold standard for ethical and sustainable business. So it's a really tough certification process. We have been certified now twice. Every 3 years you have to recertify. So we did our first certification in 2019 and then just again last year. And yeah, it's a doozy because this program, the B Corp program, is incredibly robust and looks at businesses holistically. So it's not just about, using organic ingredients or recycling or carbon offsets or like these individual things. It truly combs through your business with a fine tooth comb and turns over every rock and asks if you're doing things, to that highest level of sustainability and ethics possible. It was really important for us to become part of the B Corp community when I learned of it many years ago, because Made with Local started out really as more than just about snacks, right? It's about storytelling. It's about connecting people with where their food comes from. And it's about bringing, ethics and sustainability into a category that historically has only ever cared about, having the most grams of protein or the least grams of sugar or like very basic nutritional things. Like, no, we can build a brand and a movement that means so much more than, yes, the delicious product that exists on the end, but behind that is so much more than just a snack. So when I learned about B Corp, I was like, yes, this is the type of certification, being so holistic and so thorough. It's kind of like the anti-greenwashing that, for us to become part of that just felt like the right move.
And I know on your bars you have on there, it's like made with 100% real food or nothing weird. Like, how did you? What was it? Is that like a tagline, or why was that important to let people know?
Yeah, well, really, we started by going to the farmers market and buying ingredients from farmers. So that's all you're getting at the farmers market is real food, right? And sometimes, you have somebody say, well, what does it mean real food? Isn't all food real food? And obviously what we mean by that is, these are extraordinarily simple and pure ingredients. So stuff that and I bet you most of the people listening to this podcast right now could go to their cupboard and probably whip up some version of a Made with Local bar with ingredients they already have in their pantry, because that's what it's made of. It's made out of food that we all, already enjoy and have easy access to, not things like that are cooked up in a lab or, heavy ultra processed ingredients that are, really only there for mass production purposes. So for us, that really is a differentiator. And it is something that we continue to be very staunch in, even with our scale. We've grown from that farmer's market table, like you mentioned, into being a pretty big player across Canada. And the ingredients on our bars and the quality of those ingredients has never faltered.
Well, even though I might have some of those ingredients that are in my house, I have to admit that I do buy your granola bar mix and I've made it with my kids. So I may have those ingredients somewhere, but I don't have the wherewithal to actually come up with the recipe and do it myself. So
we're happy to make them for you.
Yeah. I appreciate it.
Well, and one thing that people would often say to us is that we hear all the time, I'm the kind of person who makes all my own snacks. I'm a meal prepper. I love to bake. But, if I don't have time, your bars are the only bars that I'll buy for my family, because they are just like what I would make at home if I had the time. Yeah.
In some of our program, when we talk about values, how is that important for Canadian women entrepreneurs to think about how they articulate their values? Why is that important?
I'll speak to why, in our journey, or for me as a founder, being a values forward brand has been so important. And, again, I kind of spoke to my childhood of being always somebody who really cared about impact. Now that I know that the language behind it, I cared about sustainability, and I just knew that we had the opportunity to use this business as a vehicle. In the B Corp community, they say use your business as a force for good. And I recognized the ability to do that specifically in this type of company, that I knew we were going to be able to do that. So we led from day one very values facing. And it's those values and that impact and the connection to, that social enterprise bakery that we worked with for so many years and the farmers that I think really gave me, I guess, the strength and resilience to be able to push through the really hard times. Because I feel like, especially for female entrepreneurs, and this is not to pigeonhole any of us, but, women tend to build purpose-driven businesses at a higher rate than men. And I think it's important to us, lots of us, to have that sort of balanced motivation. Financial motivation is obviously great, but for a lot of small businesses, you're not making very much money for a long time, right? So there has to be something else that motivates you. And for me, I've joked so many times. I'm like, if it was only about the money, I would have given up on this business probably 11 and a half years ago, because it's way too hard. It's way too hard. Entrepreneurship is way too hard for it to only ever be about the bottom line, in my opinion. But this is my journey. And we had to have kind of more more meat on the bone of this brand to be able to take it the distance.
Yeah. Well, I appreciate you saying that. And we've been running some program, as I might have mentioned. We have a program that's called Foundations for Impact. And it's
Mhm.
really geared. We did the research and we noticed that women do go into or are inspired by a purpose or trying to drive an impact in their community. And so you're right, the rate at which women will create a purpose-led or purpose-driven business is at a much higher rate.
Mhm.
So we have some programming around that. And I asked you about values because it comes up quite a lot. And trying to get very clear about what those things are, because
Mhm.
when you have to make hard decisions, when the finances are getting thin or these kinds of things, like really getting clear about why you're doing this is key, is a really important aspect.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's for us, something like this balance. And I've been asked this many times around how do you balance profitability and growth with staying true to your values?
Mm,
And I think what the most important part of that question is for us very early on to define exactly in which ways you want to be impactful and laser focus on that. Because sometimes I think, and I've gotten caught up in this myself, I'm like, I want to do every single thing to the nth degree, the
mm,
best, most sustainable
mhm,
possible way that's the nobody else is doing.
mhm.
And sometimes you can like spread yourself really thin in doing that. But for us, we've refined over time. And again, we're very, very focused on sustainable and ethical, transparent supply chain of food and running a business that, people really love to work at. Those are some things that like we are very laser focused on.
Mhm.
And that sometimes you have to just make decisions that are, in theory, yes, you could create impact on, but if it's not fully aligned with what people associate your business with
Mm.
or doesn't fire you up, then it's okay to reorient yourself back to the stuff that really
Yeah.
drives you.
Yeah, I guess it's a question of, can you drive deep, meaningful impact or a little bit of impact over here, and kind of
Yeah.
deciding on that. Yeah. As we think about this, I think it's really important. I'm very excited to hear more people talking about purpose-led businesses or impact-driven businesses.
Hmm.
And I know, you've been lucky enough here in Nova Scotia, and I'm assuming in PEI as well, to have been surrounded by wonderful supporters and mentors, and people who've been able to help you kind of grow in your business. What's the value or importance of having mentors or other people like that as a woman entrepreneur? Is there something that you might want to speak to around that could
Yeah.
be helpful for folks? I think it's invaluable, but I think it's always great for people to hear from somebody who's kind of made the journey.
Absolutely. Oh my gosh. Well, entrepreneurship is lonely. It is a lonely journey. If you're the only one in your friend group who's doing their own thing, or in your family, for example, like
Mm,
starting your own business, you quickly realize that, it can be a very lonely path because nobody really understands like
mm,
the amount of yourself that you have to put into a new venture aside from other entrepreneurs
mhm, 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 mhm,
or mentors who have been there before. So I am, no surprise, clearly a huge believer in mentorship and peer
mm,
support. I think peer mentorship, like peer to peer stuff, is so
mm,
important.
mhm,
I would say as important or more important necessarily than having somebody who's, in a more senior place than you. So I've, relied on different forms of mentorship, my entire entrepreneurial career. And,
mhm,
and now I'm still part of like a formal group of peer mentors that we
mhm.
meet like every 4 to 6 weeks for half a day and do it religiously. And we've been together for a long time. And it's a really important part of my support network.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
That's good. That's good. So if anyone's thinking about getting a mentor, I think we've heard it here from Sheena. Get
Yeah.
get one or join a peer group. Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, and there's informal ones, there's more formal stuff, there's lots of options out there, but it's just so important, I think, not only for having the advice, and sometimes you can expedite, learning curves by
Mhm.
having somebody who's done it before and they can kinda help you take some shortcuts or make some shortcuts to get to where you need to go, but just, again, sometimes just to, like, quell the lonely feeling that is rampant in entrepreneurs.
Yeah, got it. Well, we're getting close to our time, but I do have kind of at least one other question. I don't think it'll be too much. I'm always like, I don't think it'll be too much, but it's something I think that's interesting, considering that you're in the food, consumer packaged goods space, wellness space, snacks, that kind of thing. so we have a lot of women that go into kind of purpose or impact driven. We also see a lot of women go into wellness or health and natural products kind of businesses. So I was wondering, like, what are the wonderful, amazing things about kind of being in that space? And then conversely, what are some of the things that are, I don't know, challenging or you wish you had kind of known before? Because we see, your brand is really beautiful. We go to conference, we go to things and you're like, oh, this is amazing. And I've done that actually like years ago. I went to an event and I was like, this is my space. These are the kind of people I like. This is where I want to be. But it is challenging. So what are the things you love about being in this space around food and snacks and wellness? And then kind of what are some of the things you wish you had known or challenges that you think people should know about?
Yeah. So I am a food lover. I've always been a food lover. Even before Made with Local, I do feel like one of the little things that I haven't even touched on in this conversation was pre-Made with Local. I had a very bad food blog. That was me creating recipes, shooting recipes. And it was my first like foray into recipe development and honestly like marketing, because at that point you're like really marketing this thing that you've created. But even, my whole life I've been somebody who's really passionate about food and that intersection of agriculture, obviously from my background. So I love the space. I really do. I think food and beverage and like natural products wellness is a space that there are a lot of really rad female entrepreneurs. It tends to be a space that really attracts female entrepreneurs, which is really cool. And the community is really strong. Canadian, like I have so many other female founder friends in Canada who are just like the biggest super fans of each other, even if like I have a close female founder friend of mine whose products are literally directly beside mine on shelves at Loblaws and Sobeys all across the country. And we're like texting each other all the time. In theory, we could be direct competitors, but we're really absolutely not that. So it's just a really beautiful community. And I also just love that we make something that like everybody can enjoy, right? There's something to be said for having like a sensory experience and to be nourished by something, or for me to be able to make something that people feel nourished by. Like that's a extremely wonderful feeling. And I don't take any of that for granted. So that's the warm and fuzzy stuff. Now,
down to brass tacks here.
Oh man, but the flip side is that growing a brand, especially in like the grocery retail space, is exceptionally hard. And yeah, it's not for the faint of heart. And, my husband, Andrew, joined the company about 4.5 years ago because we were kind of at a point, we had our second baby at that point. And I was like, no sense of maternity leave at all in that era of the journey. And again, baby in the basket seat brought it. We call her Office Baby. She's 5 years old now, but her name is still Office Baby. But I was, kind of at a breaking point where I was like, we had just launched into Loblaws and Sobeys nationally. It was a really, really intense time. And we had to call in, the family business essentially. So we needed lots of reinforcements to really take the business to the next level to where it is today. But yeah, there's not enough time for me to talk about all the things that are hard. But when you make sure that the business foundationally is sound like ours is, from a, boring side of things like finance and all of that stuff, when that foundation of the business is very sound, we just know that we're onto something really special. So it makes the hard days, pass by quickly.
Yeah. Okay. Well, that's good. I think that's a good balanced approach. I think gotta have the silver lining and the rainbows, but you gotta have a little realism about.
Oh yeah. Listen, we can do a whole other episode about that if you want, Alex.
Episode number 2. Well, I want to say I really appreciate you coming in today, and you did bring some bars. So,
yes, I always come with snacks.
Yeah. So we're gonna have some snacks, maybe offline. Nobody needs to see me with the crumbs and stuff in my mouth. I love all the flavors. If people want to learn more about Made with Local, if they want to learn more about you, what's the best way that folks can connect with you or find out more about what you're doing?
Yeah, so we're super active on social media. You see a lot of storytelling at Made with Local on our social channels. So we're on TikTok and Instagram at Made with Local. You can find us in stores at pretty much every grocery store across Canada if you go into like the natural or organic bar section. And yeah, you can find us online, madewithlocal.ca.
Okay, that sounds great. I don't know if you saw, but I posted this week. I was at Pavia, down near Herring Cove, and they had your bars
Amazing.
next to all of the like fancy Italian, I don't know, cookies or whatever they
Yeah.
had, and I was like, oh my god, I'm so excited. So I was really happy
I love
to
it.
see them there. For folks that want to learn more about the Start Now Incubator, which is focused on entrepreneurial women across Canada, you can go to startnowincubator.ca. Or if you want to learn about ONSIDE, you can go to onsidenow.ca, and you can follow all of our social channels on Instagram at ONSIDE Now, at Start Now Incubator, Facebook, like LinkedIn, all the things.
You're everywhere.
We're everywhere. We're like multi omni-channel, multimodal, all that stuff. But anyway, we're really happy to have you join us today, and we look forward to having you guys participate and come back again, and we'll have some more great guests. And Sheena, thanks so much for joining us today.
Yeah, thanks for having me. This is so fun.
Yeah, thanks.